You gotta go to the podium.
I'll need your name and address, please.
My name is John Randall. I live at 616 Old Woods Road in Webster. I'd like to thank the board for giving me this opportunity to speak. So this is regarding the Planet Smart Community initiative. So I'm in favor of this, very strongly in favor of it, and I'd like to tell you why. So I moved here 2.5 years ago. I consider myself a climate refugee. I've got to experience firsthand the effects of the changing climate. And at first you think, oh, it's just a hot year. We lived there for 23 years and we watched the temperatures steadily increase. Every summer we had more and more successive days of over 100-degree temperatures. By the summer of 2020, with the wildfires, I was looking at this, we had to worry about whether it was safe to go outside. I'm looking at this thing on my computer screen, showing me levels, unsafe levels of PM 2.5 pollution. It covered the entire state of California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and went all the way across the continent. And I said, this is a problem. This is a big problem. So from my personal experience watching that, I feel strongly motivated to see what I can do to promote something to help address this. Now, so let's just leave it there. As you know, there is a parallel initiative called the Clean Energy Community. The Climate Smart Community is from the Department of Environmental Conservation. The Clean Energy Community is from NYSERDA, the Energy Research and Development Association. Now, their concern, which is also a concern of mine, is that fossil fuels will run out. There is no controversy about that. The only controversy is when. And so, in my view, based on all of the data that I see, like for example, Saudi Arabia says that 1/2 of their reserves are gone. So, and we've put about half of the pollution in the atmosphere since 1970. So the numbers that I read say, is it decades, is it centuries, or is it millennia before we run out? It's decades. So to me, if I'm driving in a car at 50 miles an hour toward a wall, I want to put on the brakes. I don't want to go, hey, I've been going good so far, everything's fine. So what I see in the CEC is some meaningful steps that we can start to take to reduce our energy usage with a goal to becoming sustainable. Because I particularly, everybody likes to talk about their children and grandchildren. In terms of running out of fossil fuels, that probably won't be my lifetime, but it will be my kids' lifetime. And when you think of all the ways that our economy depends on fossil fuels, petroleum, from transportation, food, plastics. I mean, it's almost impossible to imagine how are we going to continue, with anything approaching our current lifestyle once they run out. So to me, if we can start making, reasonable baby steps that don't cost an arm and a leg, everything that I've seen so far on the CEC initiatives save Webster money. It's like, why not just go ahead and do this? Because it's the right sort of thing to do to decrease our usage of fossil fuels and our dependency on fossil fuels. And because if we replace the places where we use them now, where we have viable alternatives, it'll give us longer to figure out how we're going to deal with the situations where we don't currently have viable alternatives. So transportation, particularly vehicular transportation, is just ready to go. I just bought my first EV and I wish I had done it sooner. It's a better car, just overall a better car than my old gas-powered cars. So anyway, I didn't want to go on for my full 5 minutes, and I still don't want to. So thank you for your attention, and I hope that Webster can find a way to support these initiatives that New York State is putting out for us. There's a lot of organization behind it, a lot of research behind it. If you want to look at their assumptions, their data, you want to challenge it, it's all available on their websites. You can look at it, make up your own mind. Does this make sense? Does it not make sense?
Johnny, my worst part of my job here at 4:45.
There we go. Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you. I was really hoping Michelle Anderson would help me with that tonight, but she, no doubt.
Oh, I think you did a wonderful
Well,
job.
thank you. Greg Cummings is next.
I'm going to defer maybe to a little later in the meeting, or unless I'm not ready right now,
Okay.
but that's okay.
I will come back. Jacqueline Lenz.
First of all, my name is Jacqueline Lenz. I live at 1023 Ridge Road. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart to the gentleman who just spoke, because you're making this a lot
Should you
easier.
put the mic down? so we can-
Okay, so I have to go in here. I tried writing it out.
Can you pull the mic down,
Push the
please?
mic down so we can hear you.
Oh, is this better? Is this better?
Yes.
All right, okay. I tried writing an article to the Webster Herald a couple of months ago when you voted no for the climate change thing. Unfortunately, I got a little bit carried away with my anger, and they said, sorry, Jack, you can't print your article, which is understandable. I get like that, living in this town my whole life. So, but this is the one thing that affects me emotionally, inside and out. So, okay, I talked several times with my 15-year-old granddaughter. She's really big into this climate change, like I am, and so are her friends. And she is concerned about her future. All right, you know all that, so I don't have to go into that. But my concern is that our generation right now, we're so negative about doing something positive immediately and get away from this political issue. Something that really got to me in the Webster Herald that was written about this program. The opposed to the program point to the text climate change poses a real and increasing threat to our local and global environment and is primarily due to the burning of fossil fuels, which is included in the suggestion preamble to the pledge, and is a statement that some members of our community do not support. Okay, whatever, we all have our points of view. But when they say political in the next sentence about wanting special changes made to this little constitution to suit our needs, I got upset, I really did. I guess I have good news, because to all the people who do not believe that fossil fuels are the cause of climate change, is that I know for a fact that aliens come down at night with their bright and hot flashlights and make our planet hot. It's got nothing to do with fossil fuels. So there, I solved the problem. The U.S. is #2 for producing the most fossil fuel emissions in the world. So I suggest that while all of you disbelievers, and please, I'm trying to be a good girl, like my granddaughter said to be tonight, that you enjoy your days when life is worth living. You think of all the innocent people who live in the countries that are responsible for zero emissions and have to suffer because of us. So, I'll make this one short. So, in the words of David Attenborough, who I love, and I watch every week, if we have not taken dramatic action within the next decade, like that gentleman said, we could face irreversible damage to the natural world and the collapse of our societies. It is our responsibility to do everything within our power to create a planet that provides a home, not just for us, but for all the life on Earth. My words, every single thing in this world is connected, from human lives to environment and the species of animals. I suggest that we forget that terrible word politics and concentrate on the responsibility of taking action now and not making special exemptions to suit us in doing this. I'm done. Thank you.
You did great. Thank you, Ted.
I just would like to say something to Ron Nesbitt. I've not seen you in years, and you know how emotional I can get about certain things. Thank you so much. I had to say that.
Okay, well, next up is Gadioso.
My name is Steve Gaudioso. I live at 1077 Overwild View in the town of Webster. I didn't really plan to be here this evening. I'm missing the opportunity to see my grandson receive a music honor at Rendlesham High School. But I felt it's important. Like the first two speakers, I support the taking of the pledge to be a climate-smart community. And frankly, I don't really give a rip whether you believe in climate change or not. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the money. And it's my money, and it's your money. And our opportunity to access money that's being made available to us could go nowhere if we don't sign on to this pledge. Mary Harrington made a presentation a few weeks ago where she outlined projects that are already underway that would qualify us to receive state funding. Now, where does that state funding come from? It comes from us. And so I'd like to get a bit of it back. Thank you very much. And I think it could be put to good use here in Webster. There are things we are doing, there are things that we need to do, and there will be many more things that we will need to do in the future, all of which could potentially give us some relief funding. There are at least a dozen communities between Henrietta and Sodus that surround us that have already taken the pledge, some of them years ago. And they are already gaining thousands of dollars of state money to do the work. So I'm asking that the board give this serious thought to saving us taxpayers money. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, next up is Matt Lloyd.
Good evening, Town Board. My name is Matt Lloyd. I'm the Deputy Chief of Operations for Northeast Quadrant Advanced Life Support. Normally, our President and CEO would be addressing you as he often has. However, as there seems to be many questions about operational matters at NEQ, I felt it would be more appropriate that I address them. I am responsible for ensuring that we are properly staffed and equipped to provide emergency medical service coverage to the town of Webster. I have heard many say that Ahmed runs Northeast Quadrant ALS single-handedly. With all due respect for everything that Ahmed does, that is far from accurate. Ahmed is well aware of everything that happens at NEQ, as a good leader should be. But he also lets us do our jobs, as that's what we were hired to do. Ahmed is a resource when needed, but he trusts and empowers us to make the decisions and act at our level of responsibility. We have 5 lieutenants reporting directly to me, responsible for community education, vehicle maintenance, supplies, rig checks, quality assurance, and every week I hold a meeting where we all sit together, we review everyone's open actions, discuss solutions, and leave our team to execute. Our office manager, Sue, and I conduct all the interviews and handle most personnel matters. We have a very effective and efficient leadership team. I think Councilman Cahill knows this, as he takes the time to learn about NEQ, and we appreciate that. A few weeks ago, there was some very misleading information circulating about our ambulances. Yes, we did have 2 ambulances fail field inspection. Yes, we did have missing equipment and problems with other vehicles. One of the vehicles had just finished working in cardiac arrest call. There were other problems associated with older ambulances. We'd love to have newer equipment, but unlike several other EMS agencies in the county, this community does not support EMS in a way that allows us to buy new ambulances or equipment in a planned way. As a result, we repair and replace what we can within our budgetary constraints. What the person circulating information failed to tell anyone is that as soon as we knew the results of the inspection, the on-duty crews, myself, Ahmed, and his son all met at the base. A corrective action plan was immediately established and executed, and we thoroughly went through 3 of our remaining rigs. We ensured they were up to par. They were placed immediately into service within a few hours. You see, things are going to go wrong. Some leaders would yell, scream, and point fingers. That's not the culture at NEQ. Instead, we rallied as a team, got rigs into service, and continued to serve the community. That is how a well-managed team is. Something else I wanted to address is there seems to be a lot of misinformation and attacks coming from former employees. These people are former employees for a reason. Did you know that at least 2 of these people that like to throw stones have applied to come back? Did you know one was terminated for sending sexually explicit photos to employees? Or one quit with no notice, abandoning their shift and leaving us minutes to scramble to find a partner and reestablish a full crew. These people are not reliable sources of information. In fact, if anything, they are people we are better off without, as they did not fit the culture of NEQ, which is one of collaboration, respect, and trust. It is very clear that several people in this room have chosen to listen to the deliberately twisted information that comes out of these people's mouths and take it as truth. I can tell you it is not. In fact, I know someone has publicly stated several times that I have resigned from Northeast Quadrant. I can tell you unequivocally that I have never quit, nor do I intend to. And I have plans to stay at NEQ for many, many years to come. Those that seem to be making the most fuss and comments are those disgruntled people who are not good fits with the agency's goals. These people were either terminated for cause or left for their own personal reasons.
Matt,
Yes,
my least favorite part of the job, we're at 4:45.
I apologize.
It's okay.
Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you, Matt. All right, next up is Nate Hinman. Nate, you wrote down 1030 Jackson Road as your home address.
Yeah, I put down the work address. I live at 100 Starboard Side Lane.
What was that again?
100 Starboard Side Lane.
For, did you get that? Go for it.
All right, so good evening, Town Board. My name is Nate Hinman. I'm one of the 5 lieutenants at NEQ-ALS. I report to Deputy Chief Floyd. There's 3 topics that I'd like to address at this meeting today. The first of these is our recent vehicle inspection. Second is the perceptions of leadership within the organization. And the third is the overall culture at NEQ. So I'd like to start with the vehicle inspection. I was the duty lieutenant the day of the field audit. We had just finished working a cardiac arrest. The rig was a mess at the time, and the audit didn't go well. There was nothing we could do to argue it at the time. Our rig wasn't up to the standards that they should have been. I and everyone at NEQ owned this. Following the rigs being taken out of service, I immediately notified Deputy Chief Floyd and President Mustafa. There was no yelling, no screaming. The message was, we'll meet you at base and sort this out. And that is what happened. All of the on-duty crews, some off-duty staff, and our operational leadership team all showed up, and we put a plan in place to get the other 3 rigs checked and ready. Thanks to everyone coming together, we had 3 rigs completely checked over and ready to replace the 2 out-of-service rigs in just a couple of hours. This obviously wasn't the way we planned things to go, but I do think it showed a couple of things about the leadership here at NEQ. Many leaders will point fingers and try to dictate what should be done without actually helping themselves. This was different though. Everyone came together from the top down to get us back in service as quickly as possible. To me, that is how you lead by example, and is one of the reasons why I'm proud to be a part of NEQ. There are many people that had fault in this, but Ahmed took ultimate responsibility, as he often does. Us within the organization know that he does his best to get us what we need, but we also understand that finances are tight. We also know that Ahmed has asked the town for help for years in regards to this. It is my hope that we can all work together and support each other to become the best versions of ourselves that we can be. We currently do not have the budget to do so, but with your your support, we hope to be able to regularly replace our rigs, as many agencies in the county are able to do, so that we can provide the best possible care for the citizens of Webster. Finally, this brings me to leadership. I believe we have an outstanding leadership team, and that starts at the top of Ahmed. We all know about the bashing he takes on social media and the challenges that he faces when it comes to getting financing. Yet he never complains about this. When we need things, he and the board come together and find a way to get things done. When things go wrong, he is the first one to take responsibility. He sends notes out every week recognizing the accomplishments and effort of not just his leadership team, but every employee in the organization as well. Deputy Chief Lloyd handles much of the day-to-day operations, and everyone in the organization knows that he is someone they can rely on. Unlike many leaders that become negative at the first sign of hardship, Matt constantly promotes and creates a culture of positivity within the organization, using difficult moments as teaching opportunities rather than taking punitive action. I've been a part of this organization for nearly 5 years now. I moved to Long Island for 1.5 years during this, but was excited to come back to NEQ full-time as soon as the opportunity presented itself, due to the culture and leadership that we have here. I hear and see what many of the former employees say, and I'm so disappointed that so many are gullible enough to believe them. We are focused on ensuring that our team is exactly that, a team. We work together, we eat together, we even hang out of work outside together. It's this culture that brought me back, that has had many former employees asked to come back, and I am glad that the operational leadership will not lower their expectations. Thank you all. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight, and I hope you all have a good night.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave. The next line item is, we've got 3 names. Is it Ahmed?
Abbas, yes, Jason Ippolito, and my name is Sue Garbasic. I'll be speaking on their behalf. There are calls helping the
Okay.
citizens of
So
Webster
Sue,
tonight.
and Sue, if you can give your address.
Okay, this is from Maham Abbas. Good evening, Town Board. First of all, I would like to thank you for letting
Sue?
me. Yes,
Sue,
yes,
can you give your name and address?
sorry. Susan Garbasic, 6886 Rush Lima Road, County Falls. So, good to go?
I think, yeah. Okay.
Okay. I'm speaking on behalf of one of our EMTs, Maham, and she said, I am an EMT at WEMS. I started as a new EMT looking for a job where I could challenge and help accomplish my goal of going to nursing school. I found not only that, but more. I found my second family, and I have made a lifelong friendship. I fell in love with my job and honestly enjoyed coming to work every day. I found myself becoming more and more curious about new procedures, which offered me greater learning opportunities with great mentors. I felt supported and understood. I ended up having to leave due to school and starting work as a PCT at RGH, a lot of acronyms. And I thought it might be a better line with my future goals of being an RN. However, I found myself missing, but craving to come back to EMS. I ended up coming back to Webster EMS just after 3 months of leaving, and I love my job again. I have countless memories of all the good times I had with the crews, the valuable experience I have gained since returning. I have found an environment in which I feel like I truly belong, and after my first semester of nursing school, I sincerely believe that WEMS have better prepared me for nursing school and working at RGH. I have enjoyed my time at Webster EMS so much that it has motivated me to continue my career in healthcare, and I now plan on obtaining my paramedic certification after completing nursing school in order to continue working at Webster EMS. Thank you again for the opportunity to address you all, and I respectfully ask you to support our organization. And now this is from Jason Ippolito, who's also one of our EMTs, full-time. I originally joined the agency in the fall of 2021, working part-time in Webster, as well as Unity Hospital. In the summer of 2022, I decided to leave WEMS in order to work full-time at Unity. I found that a hospital setting better aligned with my goals of going to medical school. Several months in, however, I found myself missing EMS and the changing environment each day as an EMT presented. I initially thought about applying to Brighton or AMR. However, by November, I found myself back at WEMS. I ultimately chose Webster for the sense of community, within the organization. I work in a full-time team that I know supports me and always has my back. We train together, we joke together, and we support each other. Working at WEMS is like a second family. Sometimes we argue or tease each other, but every shift I know that the EMTs and drivers I work alongside with always have my back and support me no matter what. I'm glad to be part of this team. I appreciate the support the leadership and my peers give me, and I ask the town board to support us so that we can continue to serve those who need us.
Thanks, Sue. Next up is Liam Hill. And Liam, we don't have an address for you.
It's going to be 1473 Ice Pond Lane, Webster, New York.
Say that a little slower.
No, you're fine. It's 1473 Ice Pond Way, Webster, New York.
Thank you, Liam. Go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you all tonight. My name is Liam Hill. I'm an EMT with Webster EMS. I wanted to share with you why I feel this agency is an essential part to our community and why it should be continued to be supported. I also want to tell you that all the bad stuff that you hear and all the misinformation from the former employees is not true. To start off, I want to say that Chief Mustafa and Chief Lloyd are some of the most down-to-earth, honest, and supportive bosses I've ever had. Along with this wonderful management of Webster EMS, I also feel that I've developed so many lifelong relationships with my coworkers at Webster EMS. When working my 24-hour shifts, I've become close enough with my colleagues that when we take time between when we are, when we take time from not running calls or doing maintenance or chores around the base, we get to sit down and enjoy dinner and share each other's lives from inside of work and outside of work. As I mentioned before, I felt that Webster EMS brought all of us together through the hardships and through the good things as well. The closeness that we share is something that is so important to me, and also something I've never experienced at all at any job elsewhere. I hope as a leader of I hope the leaders of our community, you will take into consideration my experience as well as my coworkers at Webster EMS as a great place to work. Don't listen to those that aren't here anymore because they are not here for a good reason. In the end, all I want from Webster EMS is a continuation of growth and prosperity in the years of the come. As a town community, it is important that you understand that the work of all our leaders and staff do. We are strong because we are one team, and I am proud to be part of that team. Thank you all for letting me share my experience with you, and I ask that you continue to support our agency in the future as you have done in the past. That's all I have to say. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Lee. Okay, next up is Michael Pope. But Michael, before you go to the podium, can you come here for a second? Michael, you're a board member.
Yes.
Can you call us? I'm just going by class. I'm just saying, you know what? I know you don't represent them, I just want to be fair to them. I don't care if you put some Dixie up there, I just want to make sure that your attorney made it very clear to us that we're. Yeah. Okay. Sorry to air that dirty laundry. Good. Doesn't matter to me. You're the attorney, but I just don't know. Is that here?
Yes. Yeah.
Am I here? I'm standing right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your question?
Does your counsel?
This is a matter of public record. Mike can say whatever he wants to say.
Yes, he can.
This has got nothing to do with our law.
All right,
Mike is free to speak.
Okay.
I'm not sure why it's a question.
Have at it.
All right, hopefully we're not subtracting 30 seconds from that.
No, we're not. No, I haven't started. We're done.
Good evening, everybody, town board. I'm Michael Pope. I'm the vice president of NEQALS. And I'm just speaking tonight on behalf of the NEQ board of directors and our 50 EMTs and paramedics. 2 weeks ago, the town supervisor, Councilman Cahill, and Attorney Genesee met with our board and presented several short-term and long-term funding options. And we reviewed those options, and the board reviewed these options and presented our proposal to you in the form of NEQ resolution to Supervisor Flaherty. I'm assuming he has shared that with all of you, what our proposal was and what our resolution was. The town board has probably talked about EMS in Webster and how it owns the CON. The Webster EMS CON was obtained by former town supervisor Nesbitt, town attorney Genesee, and Ahmed spent many, many hours over a 6-month period laying out the groundwork for the CON, and I know that town attorney Genesee and supervisor Nesbitt spent a lot of time with that as well. So former supervisor Nesbitt stood with NEQ. He helped develop Webster EMS. He supported Webster EMS and ensured that Webster EMS was created. It's confusing to all of us at NEQ why he no longer supports NEQ and instead continues to supply false or misleading information against Ahmed and NEQ on social media platforms. Why would you want to bash and harass an amazing entity that you so proudly built? To me, it's akin of burning down your house because you didn't like how the back door turned out. You know, I don't understand why. Webster should be a legacy that you're proud to attach your name to, and instead you continue to spread misleading and downright false information on social media by people who clearly have personal vendettas or agendas. The NEQ board has always advocated taking a high road and not responding to false information being placed on social media platforms, but unfortunately, this only leaves an option for people to see this and read this, and that is to believe that the false information is somehow true. I heard this, or I heard that, or I was told this, or I was told that, does not make statements true. It simply means someone said it. And maybe someone said it with a vendetta or an agenda other than supporting Webster EMS. It's just lies. Some former employees seem disgruntled and willing to spread false information, but please keep in mind, there's two sides to every story, right? If they're not with the organization, they're not an organization for a reason. They're not going to tell you what their reason is, they're going to tell you their side of the story. They don't want you to know what the actual truth is. I think you heard some of it tonight, though. One must remember your source of data. Our employees who quit or terminated for cause, are they really the most reasonable source of your data? NEQ strives to create a cohesive work environment and willing to spread an environment that everyone is comfortable in and wants to work in. And as you heard today, I think we've accomplished that. I think you've heard that from our employees. This is a testament to our organization's leadership. Our management of finances has been questioned by the former supervisor as well as members of this town board. NEQ has had outside financial audits for 3 consecutive years and that have not indicated any concerns. In fact, we are the only agency that I'm aware of that uses the assistance of an outside accounting firm to prepare our ledgers and a second separate firm to audit them. Most agencies do all their bookkeeping internally and then have an outside agency simply conduct an audit. So everything has been on the up and up. We've been very open and transparent to the town with our data, which shows the operations are running efficiently and effectively. We are the only EMS agency that has a member of the town board, Councilman Cahill, which we greatly appreciate, attends our board meetings. We welcome Councilman Cahill, and we thank him for taking time to learn about NEQ, our operations, our staff, and what our needs are. We all know that the current EMS reimbursement model, which relies solely on third-party billing, can no longer sustain an EMS agency. Not a single agency can sustain on third-party billing. We're simply asking for meaningful funding from the town to close the funding gap and allow us to invest in much-needed equipment and supplies, investments which need a predictable source of income before we can commit to making them. Nearly every EMS agency in Monroe County receives meaningful funding from their towns they serve. Some in the form of tax districts.
Michael, we're at 4:45.
Others Other towns receive funding from DEP. And I just want to mention that multiple agencies are getting that funding. And in fact, Arundecoy just came out with a new model that they are funding. And Arundecoy town bought Arundecoy new ambulances. Or one new ambulance, I should say. So, closing EMS, Webster EMS would be a disservice to this community and could not, no, it will not, it will, excuse me, will make response times much longer when someone needs emergency medical services.
You're at 5 minutes and 30 seconds now, Michael, and I know I'm not popular to the crowd tonight.
All right, so thank you for your time. We look forward to supporting your support in ensuring EMS in Webster is provided by a Webster-based EMS agency, and that our two organizations work together to do something that we've worked so hard to create.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. I will say that I hope everybody knows that next Thursday night, or Thursday afternoon, 5:30, right here in this room, the culmination of 9+ months of due diligence that has been done by Paul Adams, our finance director, has led a lot of this. Since July 28th last year, when Ahmed took the podium and said, we need $800,000, we need a tax district, we need it by January of 23. That's what started the due diligence. We have to make fact-based, informed decisions. The due diligence has been done. We are going to present the options next Thursday night at 5:30. Then by June 30th, which is about 35 days from then, the town board will have to make their decision on the short-term option chosen for EMS, NEQUALS, ambulance in Webster. And if you're very interested, come to the meeting next Thursday or watch it live on 1303 cable or on the website, YouTube, all that stuff. Okay, next is Jen Fonseca.
When I get to 4:45, just say 15 seconds, please. So that would be a lot more sufficient and I won't be interrupted. So my name is Jen, and because this is public TV right now, I prefer not to give my address for safety reasons. I reviewed the workshop presentation on climate smart communities, also known as CSC, twice. My takeaway is that it was a sales pitch, professionally done but was vague and didn't give the full story. I would like to believe individuals on the board have researched the website and brought their own critical thinking and experiences as a board member or in their own professions to fully understand the impact of this program. But to bring this back to the table a year later after it was voted down last year, I fully believe this presentation was about the money, as the workshop presentation sales pitch focused on the money. Each of you took an oath of office when sworn into your positions. I imagine this oath was to serve the people under the U.S. and New York State constitutions. By pushing a resolution to take a pledge to become a CSE, you need to consider why you would need to take a pledge or an oath to implement a program with 10 points and adopt them verbatim. This is big government interfering with your, as a town, legal rights as our elected official to follow what we as a town determine is right for us. The requirements of this program can be changed at any time. As the history of this program shows, since around 2008, it has changed multiple times and could further erode our right to govern our town. It's not to say that we shouldn't be concerned about actively pursuing the best projects that will not only enhance Webster's land and waterways, but to protect the land, waterways, wildlife, now and for the future generations. Our town can continue to pursue best conservation and clean air, land, and water practices without being part of a state program. We are doing this as shown in projects already in progress as well as projects that were previously done. Also, entering into this pledge would not fully represent the beliefs of all constituents within the preamble and the 10 points of the pledge. Researching the website, it states, after passing the resolution and taking the pledge, the town will have to register in the portal. This is the slippery slope. As the workshop presentation made it sound, this would be sufficient to show what actions the town has already taken, is doing, and when pursuing grants, the town can check a box on the application and it would help in winning grants. If the town begins checking off actions within the program as completing such, this begins the certification process or pathway, and then certain mandatory and priority actions must be completed, and this needs to be done in order to get those grants. This will also now enter Webster into a point system, which is actually the E, environment, and an ESG score. This is a global score. Webster will then be rewarded or rejected based on their points or ESG score. Big government interfering with local government, and eventually it will interfere with each of the town's citizens. Someone said that the town can back out of this program at any time. This is not true. Once in the system, always in the system. My dad always taught me that first you need to read the fine print before signing my name, and you need to do the same. This is true with this program. It's a contract, a pledge, an oath. Personally, I only take a pledge to my country as we did at the start of this meeting. You didn't need to become part of a program to apply and win grants in the past. You didn't need to earn points in the past to earn grants. You apply for grants, you win grants based on the grant writer and how well you do and what we are doing. This is putting us into a point system. This is a control system. Last night I was speaking with a friend, and he was actually for this, and he made the analogy that this is like a game, as in video gaming. Yet you earn points, and when you earn points, you open new portals or you gain new rewards. No, this is not a video game. This is our government, and this is our government within, big government within our town. It's controlling, and it's a game that would control us.
15 seconds.
It is our tax money, and it's being used to control the towns that are obedient to a program based on their score. So liberty, once lost is lost forever. When the people once surrender their share in the legislature and their right of defending the limitations upon the government and of resisting every encroachment upon them, they can never regain it. We will never regain it if we go into this pledge. And that was John Adams in 1775. Thank you.
All right. Brenda Lincoln is next.
I spoke last time we were talking about the smart climate. I'm still opposed to it. I think that there are, like Jen said, the fine print is really the problem here. It's easy to hear something like climate and think, oh, well, of course we all want to take care of the world, but it's really not what this is about. I talked last time about some of the details in it. There are some specific details that, one in particular, that I really want to bring out. But I think, in summation, my objection is bigger than just smart climate. The request is really, I think, to ask the town to not fall into the rut of doing what's always been done and to, Supervisor Flaherty's mentioned discernment. It's a really good word, right? It involves really analytically looking at something and deciding whether it's the best all the way around, not just financially, because financial is important and the town needs money to do things. That's a very big part of what you do, but you're also supposed to take care of the people that live here and preserve our environment and cultivate a community. I'm going to digress for a second and tell you a little story. I actually didn't grow up in New York. I was born and raised in Connecticut, and I moved to New York when I went to college and then ended up in Webster. But my family has been for a long time working on the genealogy of our family, which all comes from New York. And researching that, I've been learning a little bit about New York history, which I didn't know. And I quizzed my children to see if they knew it, and they didn't. But, you know, I know the education system's been struggling lately. So then I asked a bunch of adults if they knew about the anti-rent movement. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it. I'm sure you guys are mostly from New York.
What did you say?
I didn't hear
It's
it.
called
Anti-what?
the anti-rent movement.
Anti-rent. A-N-T-I?
Yep, like against rent, yep. So ironically, it is something that was a huge part of New York State for over 300 years. In fact, it's actually still an issue that people kind of secretly debate on the side. When the Dutch came over and they settled New Amsterdam, they brought with them something called a patroon system, which essentially was the feudal system. It was set up so that a patroon owner was given large swaths of land, and then their tenants would lease land, essentially rent land from underneath them. When the British came over, they kept that system, essentially a feudal system. Even though it was done in Britain, it was still here in the United States. That system went okay for the first 100 years or so. When the patroons that were there kind of sneakily got them to agree to sign the leases, the people that came over, a lot of people in the 1600s were not literate. They didn't necessarily read and write. They were taken advantage of to some degree, and they had verbal conversations with the patroon leaders to say that they could have the land, they could cultivate the land, they could sell the land, but when they signed on the line, that they were obligated to, that they had that land in perpetuity for generations to come, but they never owned it. And in return for having that land, which was free to them for many years, they went every so often, they'd have to pay their rent, but they didn't actually purchase the land. They had to build a mill, and they built the infrastructure for the towns. And some of them got stuck up on mountains and tried to farm in dirt and rocks that wasn't really good cultivating. But they made it work. They came over, they were settlers, they were finding their way. When it all worked well until the one Rensselaer, you probably know that name. When Rensselaer, I think it was his second, maybe the third, passed away, his sons took over. And by that time, we were in financial crisis in New York. And the sons suddenly wanted to collect back rent that hadn't been collected for generations. So now you're in a financial crisis. You haven't had rent collected in years, and now somebody's coming knocking on your door saying, oh, I know you thought that you owned this land, but you don't own this land, and we want that money. The connection from that to smart climate, it ended up actually, ended up being, they had, I don't think I would call it a skirmish, they had a battle over it. There's actually, if you look back at the New York State Constitution, I believe it was the 4th version of the Constitution, actually has 4 or 5 different amendments that by word mention the feudal system. It was immediately revoked.
I'm disappointed that I got to say 15 seconds left.
I'll try to wrap it up quick. But it actually got revoked, and as our current amendment actually has still revoked those amendments to abolish that feudal system. So if you really want to be technical about it, somebody's still obligated to some British lord. But in the Climate Smart, part of one of the things that they hold you obligated to is that at the point where you signed on, there are all different grants, and obviously you can pick and choose which ones you want to be a part of. But one of the things that I think is really the absolute most concerning is there's one line, and I'm looking at the application.
And Brenda, now you're at 5 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay, I'm going to read this one line.
Town of Penfield, I'm trying to.
Without the express authority of an act of the New York State Legislature, which shall provide the substitution of the lands of equal or essentially equal or greater market value, in summation, it goes on to say that once you sign on to this, if they are helping you to purchase land, if they are helping you to do programs on the land, that New York State then has control of the land. Right down to the fact that if you do something like trails and they decide that they don't want it to be public property, that Webster doesn't have the authority to overlay that. So, basically.
Thank you very much.
And I gotta say, I like our friend Brenda from Penfield. Brenda, history-wise, do you know that Webster was once part of Penfield?
I do, and I
Well,
also
there you
can
have
tell you
it.
stories about Webster, because Webster, I know that there's some debate about where life is worth living comes from. I don't know it for certain, but Webster actually was a huge advocate and part of the anti-rent movement, even though he wasn't here. He was
Yeah.
supporting them, and right around 1840, when Webster, I think, was founded, right? Wasn't Webster founded around?
So I just want you to know, Michelle, since she went to 6 minutes, you're next, you get 4 minutes. Okay? 'Cause you're friends with, you brought a friend from Penfield, so you had to sell her that minute, right?
She's a much more eloquent speaker.
She's pretty darn good, and I, so, Michelle Anderson is next.
Well, she's walking out, I'll finish my story. So Webster was...
You do realize you're telling the story, nobody can hear it on tape.
I know, but he did it. So I think that Webster, I think why they gave it that title was because they had just gotten free. They had published it in the Constitution that that system was abolished, and he was part of it.
Okay, Michelle Anderson.
Good evening,
everyone. Go ahead, Michelle.
Thanks. I'm Michelle Anderson. My address is 39 Elm Street, and I live in Webster. I have here in front of me, it is the request for applications regarding the 2023 Climate Smart Community Grant Program Environmental Protection Fund. Whether you're for or against this, you really do need to download and print this and read it. It's really important, and the details are very interesting. So, I've highlighted a few excerpts. On page 8, it explains the application process and the applicants and their responsibility. Applicants are strongly encouraged to investigate the steps involved in the land acquisition process and any state and local approvals that may be required, as well as initiate conversations with landowners before starting application. On page 10, it says, if the acquired property is used for activities which interfere with the accomplishment of approved climate change adaptation or mitigation processes, the violating activities must cease, and any resulting adverse effects must be remedied. Real property acquired, developed, improved, restored, or rehabilitated by a municipality pursuant to this grant program shall not be sold or disposed of or used for other than climate change mitigation or adaptation purposes without the expressed authority of an act of the New York State Legislature. Our town board and whoever has adopted this will have absolutely no power. Wow. Which shall provide for the substitution of other lands of equal environmental and fair market value and reasonably equivalent GHG mitigation or climate adaptation benefits to the residents of New York and be located within the New York State as closely as practicable to those to be discontinued, sold, or disposed of, and such other requirements as shall be approved by the Commissioner. I don't think any of us is against saving the environment or preserving the environment. It's been here forever. We come and go. There are things that can be done. The removal of fluoride from drinking water. It's a neurotoxin. Okay? Stopping people, and I know this will tick people off, spraying your lawn with fertilizer that ends up in the watershed, that ends up in the lake where we get our drinking water. It causes algae bloom. There are other things that can be done that do not involve the land grab that this program is. I don't think any of us want to give up our rights to own our property, and I don't think our board, who has done a wonderful job so far, wants to give up the right to govern our community. And the other thing, and I don't remember who said it, but I agree with it, politics has no place in governance. None. Thank you.
Michelle, next time you come up, you get an extra 2 minutes because you only took 3 minutes. I'm going to put that in the bank. You get 7 minutes next time. You did well. Okay. Always the highlight of my night, the Honorable Ronald Nesbitt. The past town supervisor with a very nice tie tonight.
First off, I respect the employees at Nichols, Weems, and the issues at that facility are management issues. I get my information from FOIA requests from the town of Webster and Monroe County and the Department of Health, along with phone conversations with important people in the ambulance industry, not former employees. Policy should already be in place to check for dirty and filthy ambulances before you take the ambulance on the road, not have a meeting after you fail the inspection. Outdated equipment and outdated medicines are the sole responsibility of the CEO and the Board of Trustees, who apparently aren't doing their job. On April 24th, the New York State Department of Health intercepted 2 Weems ambulances at Rochester General Hospital for an inspection. The 2 ambulances failed the inspection miserably, which also means they failed the 46,000 Webster residents. Now, Supervisor Flaherty received this report from the Department of Health, but again, he failed to make it public to the Webster community, and one has to wonder why. So since Supervisor Flaherty won't give the Webster community the details, I'll report some portions this evening. This is directly from the Department of Health. It's not from any employees or former employees. Ambulance 1769 had 2 emergency lights out in the front car. Unit found unattended, unsecured, and running with free access to the unit and medicine. 6 dome lights out on high and 2 out on low. 18 expired items. Rear door not able to secure properly. Portable suction unit inoperative. Unit has rust out and missing portions of both cab door frames, which could compromise the structural integrity of the unit. In addition, the rear doors of the unit failed to latch properly. Upon further investigation, the securing pins were loose, and this investigator was able to freely open the rear doors from the latch position, which engaged the opening latch. Investigator nearly fell out of the unit. 6 dome light out on high, 2 on low in the passenger compartment. Unit noted to have such dirt and grime throughout all cabinets and patient compartment. Unit found with used needle on top of closed, non-usable sharp container, and much trash found under the bench seat. Unit removed from service by New York State Department of Health. Ambulance number 1729 had greater than 30 expired items, including medications, airway equipment, needles, and IV catheters. Unit was multi-cuff unit and gauge is inoperative. The unit does not have individual infant cuff that could be used. Unit missing a flare. Unit found to have excessive rust. I'm not going to go on because my time will run out. Now, is any of this damaging information coming from former employees? No is the answer. It's coming from the Department of Health. Is this the type of ambulance service Supervisor Flaherty and Councilman Cahill, you and the rest of the town board want for the Webster community, I ask? It's not the service I envisioned when I was supervising. The board gave Nichols last year an additional $205,000. And what did Webster receive for it? Dirty ambulances, rusted out vehicles, outdated equipment, used needles laying around, and this town board is proud of this organization. It's certainly time for a new CEO, new board of trustees, a new updated contract that lays out the do's and the don'ts expected from an ambulance organization, along with metrics showing what the town of Webster will receive. It's long past due for this town board to get a backbone and go out to RFP and find an ambulance service like Penfield to service the town of Webster before Webster residents get hurt in one of these structurally comprised vehicles with filthy and outdated equipment, all in the name of taxing the Webster taxpayers more money. I'm here, Mr. Pope, for one simple reason. I was lied to as supervisor by the CEO. The time is up, I know it, I put it under
I
time.
give you a little bit extra time because of your.
Well, I just want to answer Mr. Pope for a quick minute, because I did start this procedure with Union Hill back many, many years ago. But I was lied to by the CEO. There was never going to be a taxing district. Third-party building was going to take care of this. Everybody on the board knows that. They worked with me on it. Okay? And when you come around, and then after you get the CO that I got for him, they go out and say, now we need a tax, now we need $800,000. Not on top of $80 million, Mr. Supervisor. No. Everybody else is doing it. We give them $50,000 now. You want to give another 50, fine, just like Penfield does. Okay? They're not a taxing district, and we shouldn't have one here either. Thank you.
Thank you.
Penfield is an EMS tax.
Yes, sir.
Just at least
Fashion.
Next,
yes, much more, significantly more than that, 50,000.
next,
Talk about that next Friday. Next Thursday. I agree.
well, next up is George Lester.
George Glessner, 929 Pathway Lane, Webster. I am a volunteer member of the Board of Directors of Northeast Quadrant ALS, have been since 2012. I did work with Mr. Nesbitt and many of us on the board, working through the ins and outs of getting a CON under the town, and then providing the service under a contract agreement to provide service as WEMS for the town of Webster. We're very proud to do that. And as Mr. Nesbitt said, we did have 2 ambulances fail. We do have policies in place, but they had not been followed. But instead of us saying it's our employees' faults, it's our employees' problem, the board and Ahmed took full responsibility and said, we have an issue, let's get it fixed, let's prevent this from happening again. Yes, we do have ambulances that are rusting out. Yes, Penfield ambulances, a well-funded EMS service, funded by their town, well-funded by their town, has much nicer equipment. I will guarantee that it's much nicer, and I agree with you. It doesn't have rust, they don't have door pins that are loose and come loose quite frequently. That is true. Our teams did fail that day. We took responsibility for it. We made sure that that got taken care of, and we made sure that they understand the policies that are in place are being followed. Now, you all have said that all of us on the board, the volunteer board members, need to be replaced, that that's a condition of support from the town. If I thought that the town would support adequately and that the Northeast Quadrant ALS and WEMS being run by Northeast Quadrant ALS was going to be funded and was going to be a well-funded and well-run agency, you would have my resignation immediately if that's the only demand that you're making of us. We want the citizens to be protected. We know our team members provide the care, provide the level of care because they believe in the community, they believe in the people in the community, and they see this as a community service. This is not an out-of-town agency or another town coming over. This is not a private company downtown coming over and providing service. This is people that take the trust that's been given to them for the lives of the town members of Webster and anyone that passes through Webster and anyone in the adjoining counties, in our adjoining towns, who request us to come over and provide service under mutual aid.
They are well-educated, well-trained, well-led, well-managed, and had one bad day, and we agree with that. We take full responsibility for that. We're working to correct that. The rust won't go away by having team members and having policy. The rust goes away by having enough funding to be able to afford an ambulance instead of buying used ambulances that have already been in towns that are funded, determined to be obsolete, but yet are cheap enough that we can afford to buy them and hopefully get them up, keep them on the road for a couple of years before they get so bad that they can't be run. Now, third-party billing, years ago, made a difference. All of us know that healthcare right now is in dire straits. Funding has not changed. It has actually gotten a little bit less, but all of our costs have substantially grown. All of our costs for the cost of staffing, we want to have good staff. We want to pay them well enough that they stay with us and provide the highest level of care in Webster. That takes more money than just a couple of dollars. So we've had to increase our staffing funding. We've had to increase our equipment funding because, quite frankly, gas, supplies, medical supplies, even non-medical supplies have gone up, but funding from third-party billing has not. And in fact, in many ways, it's being reduced. So yes, we had a bad day. Take full responsibility for that. But we are still asking for the town of Webster to work with the service that's been here for 35 years, providing for the lives of the people of Webster and providing that service, and we would want to do that with you. And we're ready to do whatever it takes to do what's best for the citizens, not what's best for someone's ego or someone's Facebook ratings or someone's social media ranking.
Georgia, 445.
Thank you. And we just want to do what's best for the citizens. That's our goal, that's our belief, that's our promise. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you, George.
Mr. Cummings, have you had a change of thought?
I have.
Thank you.
A little bit rough because I hadn't planned on speaking.
It's okay, but I love the shirt, so you go for it.
There we go. Well, my name is Greg Cummings. I live on Granger Circle. And I just wanted to give a couple of thoughts on this climate change issue. First of all, there's no question that climate is changing. There's not anyone who can deny that. However, I really don't support big government, particularly state government or federal government, coming in to tell us locally what we should do. Now, you do need governments to help guide processes. That's why we have CAFE rules for the automotive industry. They're pretty much responsible for driving the improved gasoline mileage that we have today. But what made that so effective was the government put out something. The auto guys said, "Are you nuts? If you make us do that by then, you're going to kill the industry." And they finally came through and came up to a point where industry could provide what the government felt was a step in the right direction. And it's been successful. My daughter's an environmental engineer, and when she was growing up, particularly in college, I said, you know, you've got to be very careful in your position. Because she goes around and she looks at businesses and land sites and all that, and she talks about what they need to do to fix things, et cetera, et cetera. I said, you know, any idiot can look at a bunch of rules and just recite what is supposed to be done. Doesn't need a degree from Harvard or Dartmouth or whatever to do that. My 12-year-old can do that. What it needs is someone with critical thinking who has gone through the years of engineering and environmental studies to come up with something that makes sense for all parties. And I don't think, I personally do not like big state government coming in and telling us what to do. And my dad always said, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So when someone asks you to sign an oath, and they're going to give you points, you better believe what they're asking you. They're asking us to be then graded. And we're going to be graded in exchange for the opportunity to get grant money. Now, if they wanted to be really honest with everybody, they would say, if you don't sign this, you have no chance at grant money. They'll never have the guts to say that, at least now. But they will at some point if everyone continues to give in. And I'm not saying say no to big government. Well, I am saying no to big government. But say no when they're taking our responsibility away from the board members that we elected to run our town. I can tell you Kathy Hochul doesn't care about climate change. Okay? She doesn't care. And there's many instances to show that. But that's not why I came up here, to talk about Kathy Hochul. You know, I think people have mentioned their next generation, etc. I am completely with it. I am completely with helping the environment, completely. We ought to go with renewables. Drive them as far as we can. We ought to go with electricity, electric cars. Some gentleman was talking about electric cars. And I know you've probably heard this, but it doesn't sink into most people. You know where the electricity comes from? I'm sure you know. There's only 8% that comes from nuclear. Okay? All the rest is fossil fuels. And yes, it is true, and you can look it up. 13% of our energy today is renewable energy. And that was only 5 or 6% a decade ago. So we're making good progress. We should continue that. But if anyone who's ever worked in a factory thinks that renewable energy in the next 5 years can replace what fossil fuels give for energy, you have no clue how to run a factory. And you've never been in a factory. Because the amount of gigawatts needed is more than renewable could ever give. That's not to say we shouldn't do it. We absolutely should do it. But giving up our autonomy...
You got 15 seconds, but your shirt has another minute and a half.
Oh, I was begging for 3. No, okay. And you know, climate change is certainly not a settled science, as much as people like to say it is. There are as many non-governmental sources that talk about just the opposite from the governmental sources, okay? It's not settled. Will it ever be? Who knows? But it is absolutely a political issue. For those who don't think it is, it's been a political issue for 15, 20 years now, okay? So to say, keep it out of politics, impossible. You're naive if you think we can. And Tom, I'll finish up.
Okay.
All I would ask is people, regardless of your side, look at your sources. Look at the sources. And for those who want to talk about the world coming to an end, whether it was Al Gore in the 90s, or whether it was AOC 4 years ago when we got 7 years to live, or whether it was Greta Thunberg in 2018, who said by 2023, the world will end. She has now gone through and taken all her tweets out. She wasn't right. So just, I would ask you to, rather than making up your mind too quickly, look at your sources. Thank you.
Okay, seriously, I guess his shirt spoke the last minute too.
I'm glad I wore it, Tom.
It does look like a green energy shirt. All right, next up is, why do I butcher your name all the time? Is it Rick Stracy? Did I do it right? Stracy. Look at it. It's Rick O. Stracy.
No, hey. Okay. Rick Stracy, 1491 Providence Drive. I've been a Webster resident for 17 years. And a couple of points to make about the Smart Clean Energy Community Pledge, whatever you want to call it. First of all, somebody said earlier that the United States is the #2 polluter in the world. It's not true. I think we're about 10 because we've turned into a clean country. The #1 polluter, however, is China. China is considered a third world country by the climate change people, which means they don't have to do anything. Okay? Wake up to that, folks. Okay? China is also currently starting up at least 400 coal-fired plants. To do what? Make electricity. Okay? We got to understand that. When I graduated from St. John Fisher in 1977, I heard that the world was going to end in 10 years. Right? I called it global warming then. Living in Rochester my whole life, if we could figure out how to warm the globe, we wouldn't have snowstorms. Right? Let's wake up to these things. Okay? Things change. Go look at the entire history of climate in the world. It goes up and it goes down. Right? Now they call it climate change because that covers both sides. Right? It's very interesting that the people that are running the climate change or are in charge of the climate change police, well, amazingly enough, they get to buy credits. Right? So they can fly in a private jet, they can buy credits and not worry about it. What does that mean? Does that change the environment? It doesn't, not at all. Okay? So I did, Tom, at your suggestion, look at the articles that you asked us to look at. I also looked at some documents by our Congresswoman Teddy. And I also looked at the smart community model. And what I saw was pretty interesting. One of the things that makes me very nervous is one of the documents says we have to commit to reduce our energy usage. No details. Reduce our energy usage. Who says, who gets to make that decision, how much we're using? Right? That's what smart meters are about, by the way, folks. You get a smart meter in your house, our genie can now turn off your electricity and your gas anytime they want. Right? Because you're using too much. So be careful with that. Right? The other thing it says is we have to pledge to monitor all our citizens. What does that mean? Is the board going to monitor? You're going to watch us? Maybe the 88,000 federal agents that they're hiring from the IRS, maybe they're going to come in and monitor.
There you go.
Right? But what does that mean? They don't explain it. Enforcement. They're going to enforce these rules. We're taking a pledge. We're signing a contract. So I plead with the board. Please do not sign this contract because we will get sucked into an engagement that we will not be able to get out of. And what's going to happen is somebody in Albany, and we know how smart those people are, letting people out of jail for no reason. We're going to let those people tell us what to do in the town of Webster. It doesn't make any sense. So again, smart people on this board. I know the supervisor is a very smart person. Take into account what we're getting ourselves into if we sign this pledge. Thanks for the time. Thank you very much.
And last tonight is, and I think it was last time, was David Von Carroll. Let's pull that off.
I'm not sure how I pulled it off, but I guess I gotta hit a home run and bring everybody home. So David Buncaro, Town of Webster resident. And yeah, so the home run hit is Smart Climate Pledge. No, just simply vote no. I did review, some of the information that you asked us to review last time. And here's, I think, my biggest thing why to vote no. I'd gone to the school board in Webster, talked to the principal, talked to the superintendent, talked to people on the board, and you want to get something done, and they say, our hands are tied, state mandate, our hands are tied, federal mandate, hands are tied, we can't do that, we can't change this, we can't do that. Their hands are tied, it's like useless. So I don't want Webster board to be tied like that. It's nice to be able to come here, talk to you, present, and see you face to face, and you hear our concerns and your residents and you get it. If you're somebody in Albany, they don't care. I mean, Hope right now, right, is trying to eliminate the town planning board where she just says, oh, 2-family residence on everything, right? So we need to be careful about this slippery slope. Local government's best. Don't take the pledge and just keep it home and keep it in right here in Webster. And, you know, my research shows that we have like 600 years in the United States in the territories of gas, oil, and natural gas. So we have a ton of resources here if we want to use them. But yeah, just say no to the pledge. Thank you.
All right, next up is 2 weeks ago's board minutes from the May 4th meeting.
Excuse me. Is it possible I can talk? I couldn't get over here on time. I'm having all kinds of health issues. So it took me forever to get here. Thank you. I'm really sorry.
That's okay.
I won't be able to read the whole communique, so.
Can you give us your name, please?
Yeah, I'm going to give a copy to each of the board members.
That'd be great. Can you give us your
Robert
name?
Schlegel, 270 Colorado Drive. Politics is involved in this. We look at the green energy companies and who they're donating to, and it makes it pretty clear that politics is involved. The great president sarcastically said, "We're from the government and we're here to help you." It isn't much of a surprise to be aware of our state and federal government's obsession with green energy onslaught. And what are we going to get ourselves into? For many of us who've seen our state and county gets its foot in the door on many occasions, it seems to be innocent at first, but later turns their foothold instead. Our power grid hasn't had much significant upgrades in order to handle a full energy demand by its users. Solar panels are not only in an activated state when sunlight's available, and wind turbines are very expensive to purchase and install, only are benefit to us when the winds are present. When sufficient energy gathering isn't in place, those who have demand for this energy must draw it instead from a storage battery. At this point, not only is this source most costly than any other energy provider, but it's also limited. Hopefully, the innate power plant will remain open and functional for us to continue to receive the cheapest energy than any other sources of energy. Town of Penfield gave their citizens the choice to remain. Penfield gave their citizens the choice to remain with Ghana as their source energy program. We must keep in mind, though, that when we buy into this equipment and our exclusive energy source, the equipment in place most likely will not provide enough energy needs for the public. So the storage battery will have to provide what above-ground equipment cannot absorb to satisfy the users. If the battery cannot handle that load, then rationing remains the only alternative. Rationing will not go well. Reducing carbon emissions will do very little to alter the change in the climate. Any scientist can inform us that storms are initially created by uneven heating of the Earth's surface as well as the atmosphere along with unequal contour of the ground surface. Most hurricanes, for example, begin in the Sierra Desert and move over the Atlantic Ocean when the low-pressure systems accumulate great amounts of moisture and then unload their fury on lands in the Caribbean or the Mexican Peninsula before it heads to the United States. Tornadoes, which are also low-pressure systems, do havoc to the nation, but are we to say that imposing many solar panels and wind turbines on this nation is going to change the climate and prevent hurricanes, tornadoes, and flooding? Where's that bridge that somebody wants to sell me? The greatest result of taking on this massive financial burden will be inconvenience, overwhelming taxes, and minimal benefit to all. The green energy companies sing the praises for obvious reasons, but they rarely include the negative setbacks when pitching their programs. I personally cannot buy into its cheaper energy position. Just ask many that live in Europe. They'll tell you how much more expensive it is than what they previously had. Many of them are now going back to their original energy sources. When it's no longer of use to anyone, who's responsible for the disposal at what cost to the taxpayers? How are we to address death tolls to whales and eagles from the wind turbines in all communities? From the recent scientific study done in April of the year, it was concluded that the average temperature in the United States is the lowest that it's been in 130 years. This raises the question that these clean energy systems are meant to reduce global warming in this country. How does this study have shown the elevated temperatures promoted by green energy crowd, but in fact have lowered it, not increased it? Being asked by the state and federal government to give up the store for some structured project that seems to be unnecessary from the event in the study, why then would the board be ready to jump into this agreement with both feet?
Bob, we got 15 seconds.
Okay. Our supervisor noted that in the piece in the Webster Herald, he needed more information on the green energy. Couple questions. Does climate change equal global warming? Will climate change be altered by imposing clean energy systems in the country? Was the original global warming study done under proper scientific rules and parameters? Is our grid system sufficient for energy demands? Are these modern systems as foolproof as the industry say they are? Is there enough availability in all hours, at all times, regardless of the season? What is our cost going to be? Are these...
Bob, we're at 5 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay. What's the length of time that it takes to fully install the product equipment? I only have 2 more questions. Will the reliance on the costly power and the storage batteries sufficiently supply the needs of the energy users? Who will be responsible for the systems, and who's responsible if they fail? And is there any compensation to allow these systems to go forward? And what's in it for us? And I say no.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.